hardest decision I ever had to make.
It was?
Yes.
Absolutely. He was innocent until we proved him guilty.
Yep, right.
And we took that very serious.
I mean, when this trial started, did you know who Aaron Hernandez was?
Didn't even know who he was. I've never watched football.
How many of you knew who he was?
I knew some.
I knew of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you never watched football?
No.
I watch the Patriots every Sunday. I'm a huge New England Patriots fan, and I filled that out on the questionnaire. Lifelong, New England girl, and the Patriots are my #1 team. So I knew him. I knew of him as a football player, not as a person.
Right. Did any of you make eye contact with him, and did he say anything to anybody, any of you?
No. Several of us looked at him, but he didn't say anything to us.
It was emotional, and I didn't want to make eye contact with anybody. And at one point, there was so much noise over to the side of me, I went to gaze around, and I locked eyes with him, and he was shaking his head like this, and he mouthed something, and I didn't know what he mouthed. But he was shaking his head, just staring. And I thought, you need to look back at the judge. Just look back at the judge.
Do you think he was mouthing something at you or just to somebody else?
I just think at us in general.
And when you would learn that she had been granted immunity, did that affect you in any way? Did it impact the way you kind of thought about her testimony?
There were a lot of people that testified that were granted immunity.
We were told by the judge to, scrutinize that testimony.
Right.
Well, let's talk about her testimony. Did you believe that she had thrown out a box, weighed several pounds, she says it smelled like weed, and didn't actually look inside the box?
I don't recall, no.
All we know is we've seen her on video removing that box and placing it in the trunk of her sister's car. What happened with it after that, we don't know, and she's the only one.
She says she doesn't remember what dumpster was put in. She says she didn't look in the box. Did you find her credible?
She was very
No.
forgetful.
No.
Yeah.
She was very forgetful.
Forgetful.
Very
Terrible
forgetful.
memory, I guess.
Yeah.
Selective memory.
Yeah.
Your selective memory.
Yeah.
So you didn't find her credible.
Not at all.
Do you believe the murder weapon was in that box?
No, I don't personally.
I
but
don't either.
You don't believe the murder weapon was in that box? Does anybody believe the murder weapon was in that box?
No idea what was in the box.
I don't think anyone's ever going to know what was in that box.
And I started thinking back when kind of going through the evidence, we were looking through, stills from the video we watched. In addition, we watched the videos again, and some of the images that could appear to be a handgun, their original questions were trying to insinuate that it was a remote control or a clicker, and then later evolved into, well, no, that was his iPhone. It could be a telephone, to, well, maybe it's a gun, but is it a .45?
For a bit.
Charging the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, with murder. What say you, Madam Foreperson? Is the defendant not guilty, guilty of murder in the first degree, or guilty of murder in the second degree?
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Madam Foreperson, by which theory or theories, deliberate premeditation and or extreme atrocity or cruelty?
Extreme atrocity or cruelty.
Indictment 2013-983-B, charging the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, with unlawful possession of a firearm while not at home or work. What say you, Madam Foreperson? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
Indictment 2013-983-C, charging the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, with unlawful possession of ammunition. What say you, Madam Foreperson? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
Your Honor, may the jury be polled on count 1 pursuant to Rule 27, please?
Jury in seat 1 is the verdict on indictment 2013-983-A, as announced by the foreperson, your verdict.
Yes.
Juror in seat number 3 is the verdict as announced by the foreperson, your verdict.
Yes.
Madam Foreperson, is the verdict that you've announced your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 7 is the verdict as announced by the foreperson, your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8 is the verdict as announced by the foreperson, your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 9, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 10, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat 13, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat 14, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat 15, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat 16, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
And juror in seat 18, is the verdict as announced by the foreperson your verdict?
Yes.
Be seated, please, jurors.
Please remain standing. Thank you. May the verdicts be recorded.
Amen.
BRCR 2013-0983-A, where you're charged with the crime of murder, the jury returning a verdict of murder in the first degree. And in consideration of the crime for which you now stand committed, you are sentenced by order of the court as follows. You are committed to the MCI Cedar Junction for the term of your natural life without the possibility of parole. On BRCR 2013-0983-B, where you were charged with the crime of unlawful possession of a firearm, after the jury finding you guilty and the court in consideration of the crime for which you now stand convicted, you are punished by imprisonment to MCI Cedar Junction for a term of not less than 2.5 years to not more than 3 years, committed concurrent with the life sentence imposed on count A. On BRCR 2013-0983-C, where you're charged with the crime of unlawful possession of ammunition, after being convicted by the jury, you now stand convicted, and in consideration of the offense for which you've now been convicted, you are sentenced to the House of Correction for a period of 1 year deemed served. Sir, you have the right to have your case reviewed by the Supreme Judicial Court. Pursuant to General Laws Chapter 22E, Section 3, you're required to supply a sample of your DNA to be included with the statewide DNA database. You're assessed a victim witness fee in the amount of $90, and you'll be given time credit for time spent in confinement pending disposition of this case. By agreement of the parties, time credit will start on the date of his arrest, which is
June 26,
June 26,
2013.
June 26, 2013. At this point, sir, you stand committed and you're in the custody of the court officers pending execution of your sentence at the state prison.